Welcome. Bienvenidos to MarthaEmpowers, a podcast dedicated to empowering first-generation students in our comunidad, trying to navigate the college-going process with information and inspiration to access post-secondary education. Paying for college can be a daunting challenge for many first-generation students and their familias. Today, we will be discussing one of the many ways students can support financing their educational journey through scholarships, becas, free money to pay for college. My guest, Edward Troncoso, also known as Eddie, will be sharing his story about how to apply for scholarships and the necessary steps to becoming a successful scholarship applicant. Eddie, born in Chicago, is a third-year medical student at Loyola Stritch School of Medicine. Eddie started his journey to becoming a doctor at the community college, where I academically advised Eddie with his first credential as an Associate of Science degree. Eddie completed his bachelor's degree in biomedical science, and he has been an active member of the community, serving as an advocate for immigrant rights. In the future, as a native speaker of Spanish, Eddie hopes to open a clinic to serve the Spanish-speaking community and improve access to healthcare. Welcome, Eddie, to MarthaEmpowers. Cuéntame, ¿quién es Eddie?
Hola, Martha. So happy to be here. So I consider myself a son, first-generation college student, a future healthcare professional. I consider myself an advocate for immigrants and the Latino community. And I also consider myself an active member, not only in future legislation for healthcare, but also for the rights of immigrants and their families.
Can you tell me how much money you have received in applying for scholarships?
I've probably received an estimated $100,000, a little bit over $100,000 in scholarships total during my educational journey.
Wow. Can you break up how many scholarships you received in undergrad versus graduate school?
Of course. So during my time in JJC, I've earned around $10,000 in scholarships. And then while I was going to Loyola University, Chicago, it was around $20,000 to $25,000 in scholarships. And currently in medical school, I've earned around $67,000 in scholarships.
That is very impressive. How many scholarships did you apply for?
In undergrad, it was around 15 to 18 scholarships that I received. In terms of applying, I probably applied to close to 30 to 40 scholarships in undergrad. Medical school, I received around 5 to 6 scholarships. In terms of scholarships I've applied to in medical school, the number is closer to around 15.
And what were the necessary steps you took to apply for scholarships?
So a lot of times when it comes to the scholarship application process for me, a big part of it kind of starts by looking into what the scholarship outline entails for, and then starting to customize my prior experiences, whether it's community service, activism, merit-based, specialties that I'm interested in, and trying my best to tailor whatever the scholarship committee wants in their outline to the scholarship I'm applying for.
Can you describe what type of scholarships exist out there for students?
Of course. So there's a variety of scholarships. A lot of times your proper institution has its own institutional scholarships. Then there's also scholarships that are local. Those scholarships can be community-based, merit-based. They can be essay-based, where they want you to write about a specific topic. And then there's also national scholarships as well. And national scholarships also vary in terms of things that they're looking for, such as ethnicity, career interests, things such as services to the community. And in addition, there's also scholarships on a wide variety of specialized topics, interests, and fields, such as chemistry, arts and sciences, the arts, the humanities. There's scholarships on different aspects of politics, different aspects of life. There's, if you can think of it, there's a scholarship for anything.
Great. Should students apply for scholarships every year?
Most definitely. Scholarships are available year wide, and I see it as an opportunity to really take advantage of your education and also take advantage of starting to really shape the way you, as an individual, want to spend your time in the community. Because, obviously, scholarships take time, they take effort. And part of the process to applying to scholarships, at least for me, was really searching and getting more connected to my community, and that played a big role in not only shaping the type of doctor that I want to be, but also it helped shape me get more involved in the community and really understand where my values and interests lie.
When should students start applying for scholarships?
Students can start applying for scholarships right when they're in high school. There's plenty of scholarships at any level of education. There's even scholarships for students in junior high. So when it comes to looking for scholarships, a lot of times it can come down to talking to an academic advisor, maybe talking to somebody from your high school if you're a high school student, like a counselor about applying to scholarships. If you're at the community college or college level, same thing, talking to an advisor, doing Google searches is also very helpful as well. And even word of mouth. A lot of times you'd be surprised how many scholarships are at the community level that maybe other people don't realize or recognize. And you can really learn about those scholarships just by talking to people in organizations or community service projects that you're involved in.
Typically, how much does a scholarship offer to students to pay for college?
So many scholarships range in their prices. I've gotten scholarships for $100, $450, 1,000, going as high as 20,000. It really depends on what type of scholarship you're applying for, and also the amount can also depend on sometimes the competitiveness of the scholarship as well.
And I think that's really important to consider that students need to apply for many scholarships, perhaps maybe 10 or more, because for every 10 scholarships you apply for, you might get one or two. And the more scholarships you apply, the more money you will have to paying for your college education. Now, Eddie, was there ever a time when you didn't receive a scholarship? If yes, how did you feel? Did you reapply?
I think one of the biggest examples of that is, yes, I applied for a scholarship known as the Dr. J. Arande Jr. Scholarship. That scholarship is offered by this organization called the USHLI. And USHLI is a big conference that's usually held in Chicago and is a national scholarship for Latino college students. So I remember when I first applied to that scholarship, I believe it was around 2015, around that time. I applied, I kind of, talked to different people who have received the scholarship before. I didn't get it that year. And it can be disheartening at times because, you put in a lot of effort, but the important thing is to realize that taking it as a learning opportunity and really finding, okay, I didn't get it this year, but I'm still going to apply. And eventually I did end up receiving the scholarship. And one of the biggest things that I learned from it is to just keep applying. Don't take it as a, your application wasn't good enough. Take it more as an, okay, I can strengthen my application more. Let me see what are the options I have to strengthen my application and just reapply. You know, you never know if you don't try. So if the door's there, you might as well take the door.
Wonderful. Thank you. And in relation to your career, do you think there are more scholarship opportunities in medicine?
That's a really great question. A lot of times, what I've noticed is there tends to be fewer scholarship options, but you end up receiving more money at times with these scholarships in graduate school than undergrad. Because I remember when I was in undergrad, there were so many scholarships, a lot of scholarship ranges from anywhere from like 450 to $1,000. And now that I'm in graduate school, my scholarship pool seems a little bit narrower in terms of the types of scholarships I can apply to. But a lot of times, the scholarship amount tends to be higher, especially if you know what specialty you're interested in, and also in terms of the competitiveness. So I would say that for medical school, I've seen scholarships range from like 5,000 to 10,000 to even 20,000. And it's really a matter of just trying to look for these limited scholarships because the search is a little bit more harder as well, trying to find scholarships in graduate school.
You talked about being a competitive applicant. What do you think made you a competitive applicant when you applied for so many scholarships?
I think it really all started when I started off at Joliet Junior College. I don't think anyone is a competitive applicant at first. It takes time. And when I started at Joliet Junior College, the way I started to become a competitive applicant is I got involved. And one of the first organizations I got involved in was Joliet Junior College's Latinos Unidos organization. In that organization, I got to meet Martha and I got to meet so many other wonderful students and advisors that I really started getting more involved in my community. And through my community involvement, through leadership, and through a lot of hard work and determination, I became a competitive applicant. So I would say the top three things to be a competitive applicant would be one, get involved, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your clubs and organizations you're a part of on school. Getting involved gives you something to talk about. Number two is create a resume. So when you start getting involved, you start to have so many things that you're doing that it's hard to keep track of. So the way you can keep track of it and the way you can really highlight your strengths is by creating a resume, which is just that. It's a guideline or a summary of just all your experiences and all your leadership positions and even your work experience that you're organizing in order to get scholarships and also send out to different committees that are part of scholarships to get those scholarships. And number three, I would say also as equally as important as all the rest is to just stay involved and just be open to searching for scholarships, whether it's through Google searching, whether it's through emails from colleagues that have sent you scholarship or talking to advisors, and just be ready to know that scholarships are a lot of hard work, but it's one of those things where hard work pays off and your determination really shows how far you can go. And, if you put in the time and determination, then you'll soar and you'll earn a lot more than you were expecting.
Yeah, you're an excellent example of how when students put their mind to it, they can get scholarships. And I've always been so impressed by all the scholarships that you applied for, but also the proper planning, the community involvement. You were always asking for letters of recommendation. What advice do you give students about when they're asked, please provide a letter of reference?
I think answering that question, I think should take a little bit of time to kind of talk about my story a little bit too. You mentioned how when I was a student in Joliet Junior College, I did my best to be very involved. Latinos Unidos is an organization really close to my heart. It allowed me to really get to talk to community members in my community, getting involved with different projects such as preventing the establishment of a for-profit immigrant detention center in my community. And, we succeeded in preventing that center from being established. And I would say that some advice I have to students is it can be scary getting involved, especially as a college student. This is your first time really exploring the world and trying to really find your place in the world. And I would say the biggest advice I have is just to take that first step forward and, get involved in something you think you're interested in. For me, it was getting connected to my roots. I, for the longest time, wanted to be more connected to the Latino community because, as the son of immigrant parents, I, felt a huge deal of responsibility not only to them, but also a responsibility to myself to be more connected to my culture. So for me, joining Latinos Unidos, even though it was scary for me, was a good step for me to start getting involved. I never planned for it to evolve into applying for scholarships. That evolved over time through another counselor, Patricia Santa Moyomarin. She talked to me and told me to, you're a really good student. You do good in school. You're very involved. You should apply for scholarships. So sometimes it also takes somebody believing in you to push you forward and get out of your comfort zone to apply to those scholarships. And I started getting more involved with that. I would start Google searching scholarships and, taking a little bit of initiative too. So that's another piece of advice I have for students is to take the initiative because part of it is going to be getting the opportunity, but the next part is you actually taking the opportunity. So I encourage students to really take that initiative and really explore those options. So for me, a lot of that entailed Google searching, a lot of it entailed researching what are the requirements for scholarships, and going to your question about the letters of rec, that was also something that was very new to me as a college student, asking for a professor or an advisor for letters of rec. But I was very thankful and lucky that, through my involvement, I had people who could really speak to not only the type of student I was, but also my work ethic, because people like Martha were people who have seen how much I worked, how committed and passionate I was to the type of work and involvement I was doing in my community. So when it came time to asking them for letters of rec, it was a little bit daunting at times, but I knew that these were people who could write me a really good letter of rec because they knew me. They knew my story, they knew how hard I worked, they knew that I was somebody who really wanted to make a difference in my community. So they were able to write me very strong letters of rec. And also, I grant a lot of my success to them because they really helped show me the way to applying to scholarships. And now, as a medical student and eventually a future health professional, I really want to give back to my community when I'm in those positions to really help students like I was helped with Martha and so many people at JJC. I want to take a little bit of time to really thank Martha for all her support and all of her help. Even now, as I'm a medical student, it's just so nice to, still hear from her and be able to share my story with her.
Definitely. Thank you. We may have a lot of students who are overwhelmed by the scholarship process. So by you sharing some of the tips and advice for our students, I think it's really important to hear that from you. I know students sometimes are afraid to ask for a letter of recommendation. So I recommend students to develop a connection with their advisor, with their counselor, with a coach, with a professor who can really speak, as you said, Eddie, to their gifts. What have you been involved with? Because these recommendations are really important for scholarship committees. And sometimes that can make a big difference between you receiving a scholarship or not. Another aspect about the scholarship process that I wanted to ask you, Eddie, was the essays. Did you like writing the essays? Was it hard for you to put an essay together? How did you make sure that your essays were impeccable when you presented it to a scholarship?
It's interesting. I think for me, I'm a little different than other students. I enjoy writing. The only thing that was hard at times was to share my story. I'm not really a person to kind of really, I guess, boast on my accomplishments at times. So it's nice to have people like Martha and other people to look over my scholarship who know me to really say, you should really highlight this because you're not highlighting as much as you should. I think for me, the writing process starts with reading the prompt. It always goes to reading the prompt for the scholarship, And it's always good in the beginning to write a general outline of everything and understand that you're going to go through revisions. So you write your scholarship essay and then you start the process of revising. And then as you're revising, making sure that, things like grammar are okay, making sure that you are able to understand what you're writing and that it's clear. I think a lot of times speaking and writing, they are distinct in the sense that writing is very powerful. A lot of powerful figures in history would write, and it's something that is a skill that one has to constantly develop to really get your point across and to really have a person understand what you're about. Because when it comes to scholarships, a lot of times these people don't have a picture of you and they don't really know your story. So this is really you making a good impression on them. And then that in and of itself can be a challenge, though it's important to realize that it's a process and it's going to take time. And it's important to have people that you trust and people that know you very well to help you along that journey. And it's something that you don't have to do alone. It's important to realize that there are so many resources at every school, such as the Writing Center, where you can go and really show them, I'm applying for these scholarships. Can you help me? Because that's their job. It's their job to help you get better at writing. It's their job to help you really improve your scholarship. And having people look over grammar, those are more finite details of the whole scholarship essay writing process. And then really taking the time to explore aspects about yourself, because a lot of times these scholarships touch on similar topics like who are you as a person, what values are important to you, why were you involved in the community service projects that you were involved in. For me, those can be very challenging questions to answer, especially as a college student. I know for me, I went straight to college. I was around maybe 18, 19 years old when I wrote my first scholarship essay. So it's something that, as a young person at the time, feels so weird to say that now, young person. I'm still young, but it's weird to say. It's one of those things where it's a new experience and you're writing about yourself, and you need to take that time to really explore those questions about yourself. Really get at to, why am I doing these things and why do I want to do these things? I know for me, going back to what I said prior, was I really wanted to get more involved in the community. I didn't know how or why, but as I started to get more involved, my thoughts started to shape that, I really want to see a difference in my community. I don't want to see a for-profit immigrant detention center, affecting my community and causing parents to, fear for their lives when they're going out to work in the mornings. I was involved in a campaign for TVDLs, which are driver's license for undocumented immigrants. And for me, it was a similar thing where, I wanted immigrants from my community to feel safe driving to work and really having that access. So taking the time to really develop those things are important, I feel.
Thank you, Eddie. You said something that I think is very powerful, and that is you are not alone. That when you apply for scholarships, you have the support of your advisors, your teachers, your counselors, but sometimes you just have to go and ask. And also when you review your essay, there are so many resources on a college campus, like the Writing Center or an Academic Success Center. And students really need to plan ahead when they apply for scholarships so they can give their advisors, their professors enough time to write a letter of recommendation, also enough time to write the essay. And as you said, sometimes you have to rewrite, create an outline, so there's no grammar errors. And as a former scholarship committee member, we look at those small things. We look at, did the student take the time to really review the essay, have it grammatically checked to make sure that the sentence structure is correct? And then lastly, don't be afraid to tell your story. When we're on a committee, we're looking at blank pieces of paper. So what sets you apart from all the other scholarship applications, besides your grades, besides your involvement, is your story. And don't be afraid to share your story and to share perhaps some of the adversity that you've encountered in your life. Let us know if you're a first generation student, if you've had difficulty in your life, and how did you overcome that? Because scholarships want to invest in students who are interested in taking their education further. And so, again, as a former scholarship committee member, I think it's really important that students learn from Eddie and the information that we're discussing today about how can you not only apply for scholarships, but win at getting scholarships. How many scholarships do you think you applied in total versus the ones you received?
I would say in terms of total scholarships I applied to, that number is probably close to, yeah, I would say 30 to 40 in terms of total scholarships I've applied to. It may even be 50 in terms of scholarships I've received. That number is probably closer to around 20 to 25.
Okay, so you applied for twice as many than you received. So that's very important for students to understand that if you apply to one and don't get it, don't give up. There are other scholarships. One thing I also wanted to say that scholarships are all around you. You can ask at your local church, where your parents work. If you eat at McDonald's or if you shop at Walmart or Target, look at their websites. There are national scholarships that provide students opportunities to apply and get funding for school. Those may be more competitive because they're more national scholarships, but don't be afraid to ask at your local community center or your local church. And then at the school that you're going to, ask. I remember one time I bumped into you, Eddie, at Joliet Junior College, and you were already at Loyola. And you came back because you heard about an alumni scholarship. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I remember that I was at Loyola and I bumped into you in the hall, and I was going to talk to the scholarship committee at JJC because they had this scholarship called the Dr. J Alderman Scholarship. So that scholarship was for alumni from JJC who were pursuing a medical professional degree. So it was a scholarship that I never heard of, but it was something that I was told of through people that I knew from Joliet Junior College and also people from Latinos Unidos. So I went and I talked to them and, I got the information, I applied and I ended up receiving the scholarship. And it was a pretty big scholarship. It was for $20,000 scholarship. And I've been getting that scholarship every year that I've been in medical school. So from just that scholarship alone, I've accrued around $60,000 in total just from that scholarship during my 3 years in medical school. So from the bottom of my heart, JJC is just so close to me. I love that school so much. I love the people there. Martha and everybody from the school are just people that are so dear to my heart. And, you know, for me, it just kind of really shows that Joliet Junior College is very accessible to students, and it is definitely an option for students to pursue their dreams, especially if you want to pursue a medical degree or any kind of degree you want, because I see it as a gateway. I see community college as a gateway into any type of profession that you want to be in. And it's definitely a school that I want to give back to when I'm a physician, whether it's establishing scholarships for Latino students or being involved in some way, shape, and form for the school. It's something that I've been trying to brainstorm and consider when I'm finally a professional, how to give back to my school because I love JJC. It's home to me.
Yes, and JGC is a community college, the first actually historic public community college in the nation. And it's, like you said, a great opportunity for students who are exploring careers or who want to even start in the medical field. You can start at a community college, and it's very affordable, even for students who have documents. So, Eddie, thank you. Muchas gracias for sharing your empowering story about how to apply for scholarships. My hope is that the advice you provided will encourage students to apply to as many becas and scholarships to receive free money to pay for their college education. I wish you much success in the medical field, to a future Dr. Troncoso, as we need more doctors in our community whose last names are Dr. Troncoso, who understand our culture and language in the healthcare field. Thank you. Muchas gracias, Eddie.
Muchas gracias, Martha. Talk to you soon.
Muchas gracias por escuchar. Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the MarthaEmpowers podcast team. The theme song, El Barrio, is composed and produced by Edwin Miranda. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share with others so together juntos we can change, transform, and empower our comunidad. Follow us on social media, #MarthaEmpowers. If there is a topic or question you'd like for me to discuss on a future episode, please send me a message or tag me on Facebook or Instagram. To contact us, you can send an email to marthaempowers@gmail.com. In the meantime, siga adelante y échale muchas ganas. Nos vemos pronto. Adiós. Chao.